With this season underway, there are a ton of interesting storylines to follow throughout the year, whether it be new-look teams starting their journeys after making big trades and free agency signings in the offseason, middling teams finally starting to click and taking a leap, the development of young talent, and even the first taste of NBA competition from the rookie class. While many young players steadily improve over time, we always see a few players from the top of each draft class quietly fade into obscurity, and that brings us to today's video. Today we will be discussing 4 recent NBA draft lottery picks that have already been completely forgotten about, with these being players that entered the league with tons of promising upside, yet most of you probably haven't heard their names at all over the last few months or even years for good reason. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I'd also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first player we'll be discussing that seems to already be forgotten about after being a recent lottery selection is Kira Lewis Jr. Lewis was the 13th pick in the 2020 NBA draft by the New Orleans Pelicans, and was looked at as a potential running mate to grow next to Zion Williamson, who at the time was only going into his second season, with Zion's best features being the fact that he is such a unique combination of strength, explosiveness, and speed in transition. The logic was that a player like Kira Lewis would fit right in and maybe even bring out the best in a player like Zion, because his appeal as a prospect was that he was a guard with lightning fast speed who loved to push the pace and get out in transition. In his pre-draft scouting reports, he was labeled as the fastest player in the class with the ball in his hands, and that combined with the fact that his jumper started to show some signs of improvement and his overall ability to create in half-court settings was taking important steps forward in his final season at Alabama made him an intriguing talent to take a swing on. His rookie season was mostly a learning curve, with players like Lonzo Ball, Josh Hart, and Eric Bledsoe all ahead of him in the backcourt pecking order, but he also flashed plenty of moments that still kept Pelicans faithful believing in his development. The truth about Lewis's story of fading into irrelevancy is one shrouded by injury though, as unfortunately he would go on to tear his ACL early in his second season, and that injury took away his biggest asset of all. ACL tears are always no joke, but even though athletes recover from them more regularly now than they once did, it doesn't mean players successfully regain the burst and explosiveness that they had pre-injury. Lewis clearly was not the same speedster he once was when he returned, and without ever being able to gain any momentum in the Pelicans' backcourt, he became an afterthought. The Pelicans would go on to trade him away for cash considerations in 2024, essentially admitting defeat on the player they once invested in with the 13th pick, and from there, he got traded a few more times between the Pacers, Raptors, and Jazz. When his rookie contract expired, he was not offered a contract extension, he hit free agency, and still is without an NBA contract to this day. He's currently playing with the Wizards G League affiliate, the Capital City Go-Go, where he is trying to play his way back into the league, but after putting up just 13 points per game, shooting 41% from the field and 33% from 3 in the G League last season, he's not exactly turning many heads anymore. The next recent lottery pick we'll be discussing that has already been completely forgotten about is James Bouknight. Bouknight was the 11th overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft by the Charlotte Hornets, coming out of UConn as one of the best combo guards in the class. His ability to confidently score from all 3 levels, command an offense, and provide creativity as a ball handler shined in his second season at UConn, where he averaged about 19 points per game and peaked with a 40-point game against Creighton that really put him on the radar of top NBA scouts to shoot him into lottery consideration. He did unfortunately suffer a hyperextended elbow that year, which forced him to miss half of that collegiate season, unfortunately, but people were willing to overlook the small sample size because of how high his highs were. One red flag in hindsight that got way overlooked, however, was just how inconsistent his three-point shot was. When he was on, he could catch fire and hit threes at a high volume, there was no denying it, but overall, he was just way too streaky on the year as a whole, where he shot just 29% from 3, which is pretty poor all things considered. He also just wasn't a very good defender at all, and that's a recipe for disaster at the next level, especially with the evolution of the way that teams want their guards deployed nowadays. What we're seeing over the last few seasons is low-key the death of the combo guard. Teams no longer want tweeners that aren't necessarily set on being either a point guard or a shooting guard. They want players that can either be trusted to run an offense efficiently or elite shooters and defenders on the wing. Being drafted by Charlotte should have given him an opportunity right away, with LaMelo Ball and Terry Rozier being the team's starters in the backcourt, but there was little other competition for minutes after that, and yet he struggled to beat out players like Cody Martin and Ish Smith for minutes in that team, which is never a good sign for a lottery pick. The Hornets coaching staff never trusted him enough to give him a consistent role, and quite honestly, when he did get the chances, he thwarted them as he averaged just 5 points per game in his career and shot a miserable 36% from the field. For a guy who was drafted strictly because of his ability to score the basketball, the fact that his skill set there couldn't translate rendered him pretty useless, and midway through his third season in the NBA, the Hornets waived him, which is pretty much rock bottom for a lottery pick. Also, off the court, Bouknight wasn't doing himself any favors either. Right before his second season, he was arrested for driving while intoxicated and sentenced to a year of probation. While most of his colleagues in that draft class were signing contract extensions, he was left without a team to even play on, and now he's playing for the Trailblazers G League affiliate, the Rip City Remix. He's someone who never even left a mark at the NBA level, and it's hard to blame anyone but himself for his shortcomings. The next recent lottery pick we'll be discussing that has already been completely forgotten about is Chris Duarte. Duarte was drafted 13th overall in 2021, just 2 picks after Bouknight, and unlike Bouknight, he actually made an immediate mark at the NBA level, which is what makes his story even more inexplicable. Duarte came out of Oregon as an absolute sharpshooter 3-and-D prospect, who was viewed as someone with a much higher floor than many of the other prospects in the tier around him, albeit it was understood that his ceiling was lower than many others as well. He was supposed to be a safe player with a skill set that can translate to positive production in any rotation, and when the Indiana Pacers brought him in, it seemed like those labels were pretty accurate. Off rip, he secured the starting shooting guard role for the Pacers as a rookie, scoring 27 points in his first ever NBA game and cruising to one of the best rookie seasons that year. Overall, he averaged 13 points per game that season, shooting the ball 37% from 3 and defending hard, playing his role at a high level without doing too much. He was named second team All-Rookie that year too, which historically is a pretty good marker for a guy who will at minimum be a quality rotation player throughout his career. And yet, ever since that rookie season, he's pretty much disappeared. He peaked as a rookie, and now 4 years later, he's not even in the NBA at all, currently playing in Spain. In his second season, the Pacers kind of shifted their focus away from winning now and more towards building for the future, and his confidence also took a bit of a hit, which resulted in his once reliable two-way play no longer being nearly as reliable. He shot just 37% from the field and 31% from 3 that year, and that's just not good enough to maintain your prior role. He was also a much older rookie than the rest of his draft class, coming in at 24 years old, so while he did what he was expected to do as a rookie, proving immediate impact at that age, if you can't maintain that, then you're given less leeway because he's pretty much coming in as a player already in his prime years. After the second season, the Pacers pretty much gave up on him, trading him to Sacramento for 2 second-round picks, and in Sacramento, his struggles got even worse. His production pretty much got cut in half every year, going from scoring 13 points per game as a rookie to just 7 in year 2, and then just 4 points per game in year 3 with the Kings, and the efficiency stayed at a below-average level, which was pretty much the final straw. Last season, he was traded to the Chicago Bulls, where he barely even saw the floor at all, and now that brings us to the present, where he's 28 years old playing overseas. And finally, the last former lottery pick we'll be discussing today that has already been completely forgotten about is Johnny Davis. Davis exploded in his second season at Wisconsin in college, averaging 20 points per game, being named first-team All-American in the process, and solidifying himself as one of the best pure scorers in the draft back in 2022. The Washington Wizards selected him 10th overall that year, thinking they were getting a go-to scoring threat to grow in their young core to potentially be a Bradley Beal replacement. However, ever since draft day, I wouldn't blame you if you haven't ever heard his name mentioned since. Davis very well may be the biggest bust of the last 5 years, because he has literally done nothing good at the NBA level at all, and the very thing that made him appealing to NBA teams as a prospect is now his biggest struggle. He spent most of his rookie season down in the G League, where he also struggled mightily, averaging just 12 points, shooting 40% from the field and 31% from 3 on a small sample size. And what was most notable of all was the fact that his jump shot just looked completely broken and uncomfortable, which was a development that seemingly came out of nowhere after he dominated the college game 1 year prior. In year 2 with the Wizards, they tried to force themselves to give him more of a chance to at least see if he could turn things around, as he made 50 appearances with the Wizards in the 2024 season, but he averaged just 3 points per game, shying away from taking many threes at all, and just not ever being able to get anything going. Last season, he played mostly garbage time minutes, as the Wizards accepted that they wasted their 10th pick on him and ended up trading him to the Memphis Grizzlies before last season's trade deadline, where he then ended up getting waived. He's now playing for the Bucks G League affiliate, where I imagine he will remain for the season, marking one of the hardest and fastest fall-offs of any modern lottery pick. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about these modern draft busts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.